Hello, welcome everyone to the Journey to CEO Success podcast. I'm Melissa Saunders, the head of marketing here at Rhythm Systems. And as usual, we're streaming live on Patrick Thean's LinkedIn account. Welcome, LinkedIn viewers. Welcome, Patrick. How are you today?
Doing great today, Melissa.
Awesome. And for people who may not have joined us previously or know you, I'd like to give just a brief background on who you are. Really, you are the strategy execution guy. You are the creator of the Think, Plan, Do process and the co-founder and CEO of Rhythm Systems. So that makes you my boss.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And if you haven't gotten your copy yet, of the Journey to CEO Success, it is an Amazon best-selling book. Congratulations, Patrick. You're doing a little deal right now, 99 cents. You can get the Amazon Kindle edition. We're putting the QR code right there. So go ahead, scan that puppy and pick you up a copy. So then that way next week you can join along and chat in and ask us some questions. And today we're actually going to be talking about early warning systems, chapter 7 in the book. And you talk about that dreaded 2 a.m. wake up call in the middle of the night where you just wake up and
Yes.
tell me the rest of the story.
Sure. So, I start with a quote, and this is a quote from Warren Buffett. It says,
Uh-huh.
risk comes from not knowing what you're doing.
Huh.
And so the early warning system, it helps you de-risk that. So you asked me about my 2 a.m. moment. And so in the book, I talk about how when I was running medicines, I woke up one night at 2 a.m. with cold sweat.
Oh.
And what happens was that, my gut told me something was wrong in the company. But all our status meetings and our project reports showed everything was perfectly fine. That
Hmm.
being said, I still woke up at a cold sweat and I couldn't go back to sleep. So I was like, I had to figure this out. What is actually going wrong? So that was the beginning of my journey to
Mm-hmm.
think through, like, why do bad things happen and how do we avoid these issues? And so, you know, that night, I kind of, or rather, I would say that week when I went back to the office, I worked with my head of consulting and we developed our system. And we came up with a very simple red, yellow, green process. Green meant things were going okay and going good, actually. Yellow meant that we'd encounter some difficulty. And red meant they were headed towards a train wreck. And so then I asked my head of consulting to go measure a few things that my gut told me to look at. And what's interesting is one thing I learned was that most of us, and by the way, my friends are no different from me, I learned later on, most of us are quite aware of what I call our results indicators. These are the usual suspects, like how much
KPI. We
sales.
all call those KPIs.
Yep. These are the results ones, like
Okay.
things that have already happened, like what was your revenue and things like that.
Mm.
But most of us don't actually understand or take the time to measure what I call leading indicators. Leading indicators are KPIs that tell you what might be coming around the bend, around the corner that you're not looking at. So
Hmm.
what we did was we came up with a few leading indicators about the company's health, about our employees' health, and about our customers' health. And that became our dashboard. And over time, what happened was we did figure out, in fact, that those indicators were red and we weren't measuring those. And so my gut was right. My gut was right. And we solved it and avoided the crises that time because I woke up at 2 a.m. 2 a.m. in the morning and figured out what were some things I needed to look at that were leading indicators that I wasn't looking at. So the
Yeah,
question
give
is,
us.
how
Yeah,
do
can you
I
give
how
us?
do I do this over and
Yeah,
over again
exactly.
so that we don't have Groundhog Day, so we don't have this problem again? And so that was when we created what I now call our early warning system, which is a series of KPIs that will help us avoid potential issues and train wrecks.
Okay. Can you give us a few ideas of what you determined to be some leading indicators?
Sure. First of all, Every problem is a bit unique. So
Sure, sure.
there are no, like, people ask me this all the time. Hey, can you give me a few leading indicators that I
Yeah.
can use? Really, it depends on your situation. And so, one example I'll give you is that I was thinking, one of the indicators we looked at was that when a customer doesn't pay us at Metasys, and Metasys, we had large clients, we had Fortune 500 clients, and most of them honored their bills, and most of them had lots of money to pay us. So when a client didn't pay us, it wasn't because they couldn't pay us. Now,
Yeah.
somebody else with different type of customers may have a different problem. So for me, a customer in those days not paying the bill, I view that as a leading indicator to the customer being unhappy,
Sure. That makes sense. It's super
right?
smart to think of it that
Right.
way.
But that I think works for those kind of clients that always paid their bills well. So when a client didn't pay our bill, I'd call them, but I wouldn't call them for the bill. I'd call them and say, "Hey, Melissa, I'm calling to check on you, and I'm curious if there's anything I can do for you."
Mm.
And
Hmm.
invariably, when a client wasn't paying the bill, I get the answer something like, "Yes, Patrick, it's amazing that you called me because I'm mad at you. I'm
Oh,
mad at you because your team didn't do X, Y, Z." And so over time, that became one of the leading indicators we looked at to help us
hmm.
figure out if maybe, just maybe, a customer wasn't happy. Now, it's not every single time that we got that answer. I mean, sometimes it was as simple as, "Oh yeah, I'm so sorry.
Sure.
We're doing good. But by the way, why did you call me?" And I'll be, "Oh, because you haven't paid your invoice yet, so I'm curious if there's
Yes.
something else we should do." And they'll be like, "Oh, no, no, no. It was just in the wrong pile. I'll take care of that now." But there were enough times where that phone call, and again, I didn't mention money. I just called to check on them,
Sure.
yielded a conversation that was about what they were unhappy about, and we would go fix that. So that was my leading indicator to help me tell that a customer wasn't happy with us, and we take care of that. That was really good.
So, is it only important then to think in terms of the customer? How can I tell as a company leader that my customers may not be happy? Is that the only thing we need to look at?
No, that's not the only one. Like I said, every situation is different, right?
Mhm.
My type of customers, that worked really, really well. There are probably other things you should look at. So for example, lots of people use the net promoter score as an indicator,
Sure.
but, that may not work for everybody either. So really, the question you should be asking yourself is, what result do you want? And then from that, you should ask, what could potentially stop you from getting that result?
Okay.
And why would that happen? And literally, after asking about, I call this the five whys, like, why would that happen? Or why would that be a bad thing? Or after you ask enough questions behind the questions, you finally get to the answer, frankly. So you literally ask, like, what is it that you need? Why is it that it's not happening? Why is that not happening? Why is that not happening? And literally, after about 4 or 5 whys, you possibly get to the right answer about what might be a good leading indicator to help you. So, I'll tell you, a lot of people don't have these. Why is that? I want to examine that a little bit.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people don't have leading indicators. The number one reason is they were just too busy. So they're just too busy. I call it the tyranny of the urgent. And so
Mhm.
they were just too busy to go build something,
Dealing with all
be
the
proactive.
crazy, right?
Yeah. The other thing is that sometimes you just want to ask the right question. Like in the book, I we have an example with Michael Prager, the CEO of Avid Exchange, and Michael's my co-author for this book. And he was at a time, 2001, 2002, where it was after the dot-com meltdown and after 9/11 happened. And even though he had a good growing company, his investors shared with him that they're not putting out any more capital to work. So no matter how good you're doing, you can't have any more capital. You have to make do with what you have. So the question was asked, hey, even though I'm growing well, how do I ensure that I don't outgrow my cash? I don't outgrow my ability to fund the company, because these investors, they don't have any more money for me. So even if I have a successful company, if I outgrow my cash and I can't get it funded, I'll die. I'll die. So we actually had to then build a, what he called it, his stop signs dashboard, and we came up with what are some key leading indicators that would help him to see if he was growing faster than his cash can help
Oh,
him, and
just
therefore
like
he had to slow
sure.
down. growth, right?
Huh.
So again, that particular application was applicable to Michael's very specific situation. The concept still remains, though. In his case, he wanted to have a set of indicators that will let him know he's growing too fast cash wise, because growth costs cash. So how
Sure.
do I make sure I don't outgrow the amount of cash I have because I'm not getting any more? So sometimes you need to have the right question, um, and so you have to have the right question. You're trying to solve that problem. And I'll
Mhm.
give you one last one, which is lots of times people I think are mistaken by having good results. So literally, they have good results and they're celebrating the good results, and they're not aware that right around the corner in a few months is a potential train wreck. But they're so happy they're having good results, they forget about the future. So a good result sometimes can lull you asleep, and you need to take the time to create a good early warning system to help you avoid problems.
Are there some questions that a potential CEO could ask him or herself to get to an early warning system? If I am in that last group you mentioned, everything's looking great, I'm meeting my numbers. What are some of the things that I can ask myself or ask my executive committee?
Yeah.
How can I get from point A to point
Yeah,
B?
that's a really good question. I mean, this is why lots of times it's really good to have a board of advisors or some outside source that will ask you these questions. But
Hmm.
the typical ones would be, look, what are the things that caused my good results? What are they?
Okay.
And then therefore, um, what should I be looking at to ahead of time, leading indicators to make sure that my continue to get good results. So for example, let's just take one very simple one. Let's say you want to have X dollars of sales every quarter, and that gives
Okay.
you a good result. You already know that in order to have X amount of sales, you probably need a sales pipeline of a certain size.
Hmm.
Now, from the sales pipeline of a certain size, you probably need to have X number of meetings with
Yeah.
prospects that will generate that pipeline.
Sure.
Every company is different. Some companies you can say, look, I can depend on my pipeline being a leading indicator. Some companies can say, look, I can depend on number of meetings. Now, at our company, we actually use number of meetings.
You're
So
right.
for us, if my number of meetings begin to fall below a certain number, gets into the red zone, I shouldn't have to wait till the end of the quarter to go, oh, guess what? My
Mm,
sales did not materialize and I'm not doing as well as I thought I was going to or as well as I wanted to. So in this example, the number of meetings I'm having would be a good leading indicator,
sure.
right?
Sure.
So I'll give you a crazy one. So one thing that happened at Medisys was that my employees were, or rather I should say, we had smart people working really, really, really hard. But somehow we were making a lot of mistakes. Our customers weren't happy. But these were smart people. So,
Mhm.
so one thing as I observed, I realized that my folks were working overtime a lot. They were working
They were
50,
working too
60, 70
much.
hours a week, too much. So I had a thesis. My thesis was, or my premise was, hey, maybe my guys and gals are just working too hard. And because of that, they're not getting enough rest and they're making bad decisions. So I wanted to test that idea, and so I measured how much hours they were clocking every week, and they were clocking a lot. So then I decided to test this idea, and I say, okay, guys, I'm going to give you a new indicator. If you're working more than 50 hours a week, that's red. That's red. And if you're working less,
Mm,
I'm sorry. I remember it was like I want you to work. I want you to work. Sorry, if you were working less than 50 hours a week, that was green. Like I didn't want you to work too much. If you're working more than like 60, 70 hours a week, that's red. Like you're revving above the red line. So I wanted people to work less. So we tested that, and as I got my people to work less than 50 hours a week into the green zone, so to speak, uh, we actually got less bugs in the software, less
wow.
problems to work.
That's crazy to think about.
So in this case, you can ask the
Yeah.
question like, gee, Patrick, how did you know? I didn't know. I didn't know. It was a premise that maybe my people were just working too hard and that
Mhm.
therefore they were they didn't have time to take off things carefully, generating more bugs. So it
Huh.
was, and I proved it by measuring that, and then we kept that KPI. Now, it could have been the other way too, right? We could have measured it and discovered that actually that's not
That
it at all.
wasn't it. It was something else.
But
Sure, sure.
in that particular case, that turned out to be a good idea for us. So some of these things you may have to try. You may have to go, hey, I'm curious if that's if I test that idea, that might be a good leading indicator. Or you may test the idea and realize that it's not a good leading indicator.
And you keep on mentioning a dashboard. Now, is this a software? Is it done on a piece of paper?
Yeah.
How
So,
can
so you can do a dashboard anyhow you want to do it. Like
okay.
for us, of course, we have dashboard software, so we do it in our software. Some people use Excel, but I'll tell you the cutest dashboard that I've ever built, which was that my daughter, my younger daughter Nicole, growing up as a child, she had bad eczema problems, and we took it all the doctors, all kinds of creams, we tried everything. But we observed the following, that if she had enough water today, maybe tomorrow she'll have a better day. But we knew
Huh.
that if she had not enough water today, for sure she'd have a bad day tomorrow. So
Yeah, it was
I'm
a leading
saying
indicator, right?
maybe, right? So it's not every single day. If she drank 8 glasses, the next day should be okay. But if she only drank 2 or 3, for sure she wouldn't be okay. So we created some simple dashboard. It was in the kitchen, and it was like, okay, I went and bought her these cute magnets, and every time she had a glass of
Sure.
water, she put the magnet on there. And my wife laughed at me at first. Pei was like, "Hey Patrick, why do you bring your work home and use us as a guinea pig?" And I'm like, no, 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 I'm not using my daughter as a guinea pig. I'm actually giving her a dashboard to help her health. So basically, I said, hey, and by the way, she was very young. She was like 5 years old, like really young. I said, hey, Nicole, when you drink a glass of water, just put it on the dashboard. And if you can get to 8 glasses a day, that's green. That's good. That's really good. If you're
Nice.
less than 4 glasses a day, that's red. That's really bad. So she could just understand that simple red, yellow, green zone. And I said, look, if you finish a week where every single day you're able to maintain green, then the weekend comes and daddy takes you shopping, buys whatever you want as a present.
Ooh, I
So
like
so that
that.
was my cutest, simplest
Yeah.
dashboard, and it did help my daughter's skin tremendously. It helped tremendously.
And Patrick, we are running out of time, but just one other question. You're mentioning red, yellow, and green. I know as an employee, I would have a lot of trouble marking one of my indicators as red. Do you see this happening a lot? And how can I get over that?
That's a great question. So much depends on your culture of the company. So as you know, over here, we believe that bad news is actually good news. And the reason why I say that is bad news is going to happen whether you like it or not.
Right.
So the earlier you get it, the more time you have to fix the issue. So bad news is actually good news because then you have time to go fix it. So I would suggest the following, that the culture of the company needs to be open, transparent, and invite that bad news in. We call this in this company, we call the gift of red. If
Hmm.
you if you if you have something that's not going well and you share it, we say that you just gave me a gift because you just gave me the gift of time. You gave me more time to go fix and solve it. So I call that the gift of red. This translates to a practice of being transparent and
Hmm.
allowing and encouraging people to share and engage their brains. Like, look, I want to know that it's red so that more people can work on it and solve it as a team. So yes, I do think that bad news is actually good news. Give it to me early, don't hide it, and we can solve the problem. That's what the early warning system is all about. So your culture has to be willing to let you put a red up and say thank you, and not get upset with someone because they
Yeah.
put a red status up. Because if you get mad at someone putting a red status up, that's probably the last time you see a red status.
Oh, for sure.
People will
Right.
think
You're gonna
you
kind
know.
of, yeah, you're gonna
Yeah.
fib a little bit. That makes a lot of sense. And I know for people who want to know more about early warning systems, obviously they can buy your book. But then I do also know that you do have webinars occasionally, and I'd like to encourage the the viewers to go on our website, which is rhythmsystems.com/events. And I think there's one actually coming up in December, mid-December, for anyone who wants to hear a little bit more about leading indicators and the power of what a dashboard can bring to a company. Any last minute thoughts before we check out on this
No,
episode?
I would say the early warning system is one of the key practices of helping you be successful, right? So the first two practices in the book is about helping yourself grow.
Be
The third and
curious.
fourth one is about executing well, which is really about taking care or being faithful to the things that you've been given. So this is the early warning system. I think our next one we're going to be talking about being fully aligned with your team. So
Yeah, that
look forward
sounds
to that
great.
one.
Yep. Make sure you tune in next Friday and we will be here LinkedIn Live. See you then.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you, Patrick.